Hey folks, welcome back. Chris in central Pennsylvania. A light dusting of snow here on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. Bit chilly out here. It's currently 18 degrees Fahrenheit. And yes, I'm wearing shorts. So we'll make this brief. It seems an apropos time to caution South African refugees and aspirants who come to America to understand that you're coming to a country with the rule of law, where we adhere to the law. Now, we've had exceptions to that in the past, particularly with leftists running jurisdictions like Portland and Seattle and Washington. But generally speaking, the rule of law applies here. And generally speaking, overwhelmingly the case, police aren't corrupt. You can't get into a dispute or an argument because you can't handle your alcohol and get out of it, or be speeding and get out of it by paying 200 Rand, bribe or something like that. So here's a word of caution. As I've said, your refugee status can be revoked if the conditions in the country you came from have improved. Unlikely to be the case in South Africa. If you committed fraud against the U.S. government by lying on your application or omitting facts that later find out that you actually were convicted of crimes and didn't tell us about it, you could lose it that way. Another way I've talked about in the past, which I would hope doesn't occur, is that if you commit a serious crime in America, you can lose your refugee status. You can also wind up going to jail. So let's keep that in mind. The behavior that many South Africans get away with in South Africa is not acceptable in America. Now, this is not an assault on South Africa, on its culture, its character as South Africans, which some people incorrectly infer. But it is a warning and an admonishment that the things that you get away with in South Africa, you will not get away with in America. If you can't handle your drink, don't drink. As I said, nothing good happens after 9 p.m. on New Year's Eve, and that's a fact. Generally speaking, nothing good happens after midnight, so keep that in mind. But if you go out, you can't simply beat your spouse or your partner. You can't break into people's homes. You can't drink and drive. These are criminal offenses in America, things that could jeopardize your refugee status. If you've got a family, think about them and adjust your behavior. Also, the way that men and women interact in South Africa is very different than it is in the United States in many cases. A lot of the abusive behavior that we see in South Africa, and that comes from all kinds of people, not just black, but white, and brown people too, is not tolerable or acceptable in America. And people will report you, and the police will come. And you will be charged with a crime, which could jeopardize your refugee status, and you could be deported. So again, I hate to bring this up on New Year's, but it seems like an apropos time, just in case anyone engages in such behavior. There are consequences to our actions. And if your action is inappropriate, consequences could be devastating to you, possibly to your family. So keep that in mind as you go about your experience coming to America. Obey the laws, behave yourself, be respectful, and you'll be fine. But if you transgress, things can get ugly.